Okay, cool. So I guess to start with, I just want to ask, like, in a normal COVID-free term, what kind of things would the Feminist Society, what would they be putting on? What would they be doing?
So I guess the main difference between a kind of normal non-COVID term and a kind of COVID pandemic term is that our events would be in person. So we're still going to host the same kinds of events, but the majority of them are going to take place over Zoom. But we're hoping that we can still maintain the same kind of atmosphere. So I can talk a bit about those events now, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we run a weekly debating event, which is called Liberation and Liquor, which is probably our most popular event. And the way we structure it is that the first half is a kind of debate in a kind of typical sense with a kind of this house believes that style motion. And it's always related to, obviously, feminism, but we try and make it relevant to what's going on in the world at that time. So it's always really kind of lively and interesting. And then the second half of the event is what we call the resolution. So instead of it being a motion, we phrase it, the kind of thing that we're going to discuss, as a question. And the focus really is on coming up with answers as opposed to debating with each other, which is obviously important. We think it's really good for people, especially women and non-binary people, to be able to feel confident to kind of speak and present their ideas in a group. But the resolution really is more of a space to collectively pool our ideas, pool our kind of intellectual knowledge and resources and understanding of the world, and try and do something a bit more productive. And yeah, I really enjoy that section, actually. It's really great. And it does feel like we are, I think, doing things or suggesting ideas that people can kind of implement in their own lives and actually make a change, which is what we're all about. So that is our Liberation and Liquor event, which runs every Monday. We also have a fortnightly event, which is called Whining Women, which is actually currently undergoing a bit of a rebrand, so watch this space. So yeah, that runs every fortnight, and that is an event that's for women and non-binary people only, and people that identify as women. And that is a much more relaxed event. It's normally a kind of smaller group of people, and basically we get together and there's an overarching theme for the evening, and it's really chilled and we just chat about whatever it is. So last year, some of the things that they talked about were families, love and relationships. So it's those kinds of things, and we're going to be continuing in the same vein this year. And it's really good. I think the main aim of that event really is to create a space where we can get together and support each other after a week living under patriarchy, because it's really tiring, and it's nice just to share our experiences, listen to each other, feel listened to, and I think every time that I've been, everyone comes away feeling really kind of refreshed and relaxed. So those are our two regular events. Also, depending on what term it is and who the committee are, there's lots of other events that happen in the term. They're all slightly different. I can talk to you, if you like, about some of the ones that we've got coming up this term.
No, that sounds really good, because that's the kind of stuff that freshers will want to hear about. So please.
Yeah. So we've got kind of on average 2 events a week. One thing that I'm really looking forward to this time is we've got quite a few collaborative events. So we're hosting a poetry night with the ISIS. We've also got a collaborative event with Melanin, where we're going to discuss how to create a truly anti-racist feminist movement. And we also have a shared event with a new feminist society in Oxford, which is super exciting. I'm really excited to see what they get up to, and we're sharing an event with them, which is going to be I can't confirm any speakers yet because it's all still in the planning stage, but I promise we've got some really, really exciting speakers. They're going to talk about feminist porn, and we're going to discuss pornography and feminism, and the kind of long and ugly history of pornography and feminism, and how those two things might be reconciled now. And yeah, we've got some really cool speakers, so yeah, that should be good.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
So you put on a lot of those kind of events. Do you ever get involved in sort of like active campaigning? Because that's the kind of thing that you could see like a feminist society doing. You know, maybe addressing issues of feminism at Oxford. Is that something that the feminist society does?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really are kind of keen to be not just a society that puts on events for students, but actually a society that engages with the real issues, and hopefully tries to change things. So one thing that we're doing this year is we've got a kind of long-standing, I guess, commitment to support two charities that are based in Oxford. One of them is Trans Oxford, and one of them is Period Link. So we've kind of committed to donate to those charities regularly, and our charities officer actually at the moment is kind of in the process of talking to them about ways in which we can support them throughout the year, to kind of get involved with where appropriate and support the wonderful work that those two charities do. Also, we have quite an active social media page where we share petitions, and also specifically kind of Oxford related open letters. So one of the things that you might have seen is there was a big open letter that was brilliantly written by a group of really great people. So thank you very much to the group of people that wrote this letter, that was talking about getting Oxford University to commit to a zero tolerance policy on racism and classism, because one of the things that has kind of really been exposed over the lockdown period is the horrible amount of racism and classism that goes on in the university. And we obviously, as an intersectional feminist society, completely stand against that and are trying to do everything that we can to, first of all, put pressure on the university to structurally address this, not through superficial measures, but actually through some structural change, but also to support particularly the women and non-binary people that are facing the kind of at the forefront of at the receiving end of this kind of horrible oppression, and trying to create an environment in which yeah, we can all support each other and try and make our time here as enjoyable as possible. So one of the things that we've kind of done as a result of signing this open letter is, over the long back, we've come up with 2 resources that are going to be available on our website, and also available to download at the virtual Freshers Fair. And hopefully we're going to get them distributed to colleges as well. And these are resources. The first one is about how to be an effective ally, and the second one is about intersectional feminism, and it kind of hopefully breaks down a bit what that is, because both of these things are, first of all, super kind of integral to our society and what we do, but also we wanted to actually create something that would be, in a very practical way, helpful to students at the university who want to get involved with the struggle against classism, racism, sexism, all forms of oppression, but maybe aren't quite sure how to go about doing that. So in particular, we thought a little kind of guide about allyship would be useful, because I think it's a term that is perhaps misunderstood sometimes, and also I think people are perhaps afraid of getting it wrong sometimes. So we just wanted to create a physical or virtual, as the case may be, place in which there's really useful information all together that kind of addresses the various ways in which allyship can be really successful, and also the places where people need to be a bit careful about how they go about doing their allyship. So we're hoping that those are going to be a useful product for people to use.
I think there was one word there that I was kind of keen to pick up on, which is intersectional. So without wanting to give away too much of what is in the resource that you're doing, could you just briefly describe to maybe someone who would describe themselves as a feminist but isn't that kind of up to date, isn't that aware, doesn't really know these things? What does it mean to say that you're an intersectional feminist society?
Of course, yeah. So the term intersectional was coined by a feminist theory, Kimberly Crenshaw, and it is a really key term in feminist thought and feminist criticism and feminist theory. But actually, I think it's a really simple idea to understand, because essentially what it's saying is that to talk about feminism and isolate the sexism of oppression is really to betray the nature of oppression, because oppression is a structural thing. And there are various different forms of oppression that are created and maintained through the structures of power that exist. So, for example, we can't talk about feminism without also addressing racism, because not only do these two kind of categories of oppression overlap, there are Black women and also women of colour, but also they're actually fundamentally interlinked, because they exist within the same structures, and the same structures and actually the same kind of class of people benefit from that oppression. So is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. So is it about inclusivity then? Because the other thing that I wanted to ask about is something that you say on your Twitter pages, that you're very clear that you don't support TERFs, which is trans exclusionary radical feminism. That's something that definitely seems to have, in some people's eyes, tarnished the image of feminism, because these are people who describe themselves as feminists that will often promote transphobia. So being intersectional, is that intertwined with this idea that feminism needs to be inclusive to absolutely everyone, including non-binary people and trans people?
Well, yeah, exactly. I think it's to do with the recognition. I guess when you recognise and when you understand that sexism, for example, is related and is interrelated to transphobia, that isn't to say that they are experienced in the same way or that they are the same, but they're interrelated. I think once you understand that, I don't quite see how you could ever exclude or kind of perpetuate transphobia yourself as a kind of so-called feminist. So yeah, I mean, inclusivity is super important. We want to welcome everybody, and we want to make it very clear that we particularly welcome non-binary people and trans people, and also lots of other categories of marginalised women who have been marginalised and excluded from feminism for a very long time. And we really want to kind of change that, because that is wrong. But also, I think inclusivity must come with an appreciation that, first of all, we all have a kind of inbuilt way of thinking that sometimes needs to be challenged. So people are, of course, welcome to be kind of included in the feminist movement, but I think that also comes with a responsibility that sometimes intersectional feminism might require you to challenge some of your own assumptions, and that can be difficult work. But if you are kind of to be included, then that is kind of what's required from you. And I think we're all doing that all the time, right? Or we're trying to. And that's perhaps one of the most powerful things that we can do is to change our own way of thinking, and then to try and encourage others to do the same.
That's really interesting. Very nearly out of time, so I guess just one last quick question is, how briefly would you recommend that freshers kind of get involved with the Feminist Society? Where would they go to find out more about these events that you're putting on?
Yeah, cool. So I can do it quickly. So find us at Freshers Fair. We're Oxford Feminist Society, and find us on all of the socials. We're at OxFemSoc. And we also have a website. The web address is a little bit complicated, so I recommend going on the Facebook page and just following the link there. And all our information is shared on all of those social media pages. We'll be available to talk to at Freshers Fair. And yeah, you can DM the social media pages as well, and we're happy to respond.
Okay, cool. Well, Ruth, thank you very much for your time.
That's all right. Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope that was okay.
Yeah, that was great. Wonderful. Thank you.